Hello, my name is Trejay, and I blog over at aheartforwisdom.com. I'm so excited to join you today. I hope you're having a wonderful day. It is a beautiful day. It's a day that the Lord has made, and I just want to give you some encouragement and some strength along your journey because I know that we're all dealing with something. Everybody has their challenges or there are things that they wish were different or want to be different or whatever the case may be. And so I just want to encourage you that where you are right now is not where you will always be. And what you're dealing with right now will not be what you will always have to deal with. And so I just think about those times where, like the woman with the issue of blood, she dealt with that for 12 years. The man that was at the pool of, I think it's Bethesda, I'm not sure how you say that, he was there 38 years. There were people that dealt with things for a long period of time, and I'm sure that they had their identity wrapped up in that situation, feeling like it was never going to change, that they were doomed to a life of defeat, a life of having to deal with on again, off again kinds of symptoms or, just whatever it was. And yet there was a set time for their deliverance. There was a set time for them to intersect with the power of God, with the love of Christ, and to be set free. And so I just want to encourage you that whatever it is that you feel like you're just in this perpetual cycle of defeat, that you just feel like you're going around the rat wheel like a gerbil would go around this wheel, I want to encourage you that you're not stuck, that God has a plan, that Jesus wants to deliver you and that he wants to set you free. Whether you caused it, whether somebody else caused it, regardless of the source, if it's not life and life more abundantly, is always the enemy. And so I just want to encourage you with that. And I was thinking recently, my kids and I like to play this game called Phase 10. And so, well, my husband too, but we play this as a family. And so there's 10 phases and there's certain things that you have to complete in each phase, plus, be able to do it before someone goes out. And so recently we were playing that game and felt like I was eternally stuck on this certain phase. I would get so close. I would be like one or two cards away, and then somebody would go out, or something would happen and I wouldn't get the cards that I needed. And I just kept thinking while I was playing this game, I'm like, I know this is just a card game, but in my life there are times where I feel like, man, I am stuck on this phase and I don't know how to get out of it. Do you ever feel like that in life? Whether it's in your career, whether it's, being at home, whether it's raising a family, relationships, your body, whatever it is, I just want to encourage you that you're not going to be perpetually stuck where you are, that there are steps and lessons to learn where you are right now, training that's being developed in you. And so I was thinking about some scriptures, and one of the things that I was thinking about was 2 Timothy 3:14 through 17, and it's out of the Phillips translation. And it says, "Yet you must go on steadily in all those things that you have learned and which you know are true. Remember from what sort of people your knowledge has come from and how early childhood your mind has been familiar with the Holy Scriptures, which can open the mind to salvation, which comes through believing in Christ Jesus." And this is the part. It says, "All Scripture is inspired by God and is useful for the teaching, the faith, and correcting error, for resetting the direction of a man's life and training him in good living. The Scriptures are comprehensive equipment of the man of God. The Scriptures are the comprehensive equipment of the man of God and fit him fully for all branches of his work." And so just like the phases in that game, there are phases in our life. And each phase is for our training, for our equipment, for our development, so that we can grow, so that we can learn, so that we can move on. God is never putting anything in our life to keep us stuck. Jesus is always setting us up for advancement. Sometimes we cooperate, sometimes we don't cooperate. Sometimes the people around us cooperate, sometimes they don't cooperate. But regardless of that, God knows how to get you where you need to be when you need to be there. And so a phase is a distinct period or stage in the process of change or forming part of something's development. And some synonyms would be like stage, period, chapter, episode, part, step. We've talked about that before, about the steps. And the other thing is it's also carry out something in gradual stages. It's also to adjust the phase of something, especially so as to synchronize it with something else. And so I was just thinking about like Paul and Jesus and how they had to develop. They didn't get where they were overnight. There was a training process. There were things that they went through, things that they learned, things that they were taught in and trained in. I was reading just some information about Jesus and like his father was, it says, a carpenter's son. And so it was talking about how that was probably like a stonemason or, somebody that was and like that. And so I was just thinking about how working with those different elements, those different things that he worked with, Jesus learned how to deal with people. Stone is hard. Stone is not, it's not easy to work with. You don't just, put it in your hand and mold it the way that you want. It takes chiseling, it takes carving, it takes, special tools and certain skills and all of those things, though, he learned, and it says in the scriptures that he grew in wisdom and he grew by the things that he suffered. And so I just want to encourage you that God can work all things together for your good, for those that love him, for those that have a heart towards him. And you look at the different people in the Bible and how God took negative situations, whether they caused it or whether someone else caused it or the enemy or what, a combination of all of the above. God took those people from nothing, nowhere, going the wrong way to putting them on the right track. And so I just want to encourage you that God has a track for you. There is a race that is set before you, a race for you to run. And, Jesus lived silent years. There were years that we don't know what he did in his everyday life. We don't get those details. But what we do know is that all of that preparation was used in his ministry on earth. Same with Paul. Even the stuff that was bad and the zeal that he had that was misguided and misdirected, God still used all of that training from Gamaliel and from his background and his parents to be able to use him to be effective in his service for the Lord. So regardless of your past, regardless of the things that you've been through, like Paul didn't let his past stop him. He did not let those things that he did keep him from moving forward in the future or from being a voice. And you are created to be a voice in all of those things. God will work together. If you'll place it in his hands, he'll put it together and make something beautiful. And so I was just looking up the stone masonry, and it says it involves creating building structures and sculptures using stone from the earth. And it's one of the oldest trades in history. And then it says that the stone structures are fireproof, insect-proof, and often will withstand earthquakes, making rock an ideal building material. Many types of rock are used in building materials in modern times. And so I was just thinking about how, Jesus talked about the stone that the builders rejected. Jesus talked about us being living stones and being built up, into a temple fitting for the Lord. And so I just want to encourage you that those stony places, those places that you feel like, I just can't get through this, or this is hard, or the chiseling, or I'm sure it was tiring and there's all kinds of dust that comes up from it. And so I just want to encourage you that there is hope for you and there is hope for me. And God knows how to work with tough materials. And so I was thinking about Ezekiel 36:26 through 27. And it says, a new heart also I will give you, and a new spirit I will put within you. And I will take away the stony heart out of your flesh, and I will give you a heart of flesh. And I will put my spirit within you, and I will cause you to walk in my statutes, that you keep my judgments and do them. So whatever step or phase that you feel like you just can't get out of it, I just want to encourage you that God knows how to take that hard place, that hard situation, and make it into something that's soft and pliable into his hands, but yet hard where it needs to be hard. You know, it says he'll harden us to difficulties, that we're supposed to set our faces like flints, is what he told Jeremiah, you know, and not be moved by their faces or not be moved by our circumstances. So all of these things are working something in you and working in something in me, causing us to run our race and to be equipped to reach the people, go to the destinations, do the things that we're called to do. So I remember, I've always remembered this, and this was years ago, but Chris Kane said, hey, God told her that you need to do what's in your hand, and then I'll give you what's in your heart. So maybe what you're doing right now is not your, ooh, this is the ultimate thing, you know, it's always what I wanted to do. Maybe you're not there yet. Maybe you're stuck in a phase, you feel like, or maybe you're stuck in a place that you're like, I don't understand how this gets me from point A to point Z. But just know that everything within this process, he's working together to make you fit and able to do what he's called you to do. And it's part of the training. I think about like in the Olympics, you know, and they have bobsled trainers train differently than swimmers, you know, their environment is different. Even if they're in the same sport, they don't train the same way because their bodies are different, their makeup is different. So the way God's training you may be different from the way he's training your husband. The way he's training you may be different from the way that he's training your boss or your friend or whatever. And so instead of looking at the training process and looking at all the hard, difficult aspects of it, I want to encourage you to go to a place that's deeper, go to a place in God, in the Word, where you get yourself firmly rooted, deeply planted. Yesterday we were encouraged by someone to go deep, to let your roots go down deep, to not let them get shriveled up. And you know, Jesus talked about wineskins, old wineskins. You know, when something is old, it gets wrinkled, you know, and Jesus wants us to be a church, a bride without spot, blemish, or wrinkle. And the only way to do that is to go through these training phases, to go through these different things. And, you know, even Paul had phases. And so in Acts, it talked about, my pastor talked about this a while ago, and so I thought about it today. But in Acts 12:25, that was one phase. Acts 13:2-4, that was another phase. And so there were different times where Paul was called out, and it said that they accomplished their mission or whatever. And so I just want to encourage you that even Paul had years of being by himself on the backside of nowhere. And so if you feel like that's where you are right now, start jumping up and down and rejoicing, because that's a good place to be. That means that God is preparing you for the future, and he is putting things in you, taking things out of you, chiseling, you know, removing, and those are hard processes in the middle. But the result, again, is that he's taking those stony places to give you a heart of flesh. And so, you know, I just want to encourage you not to be headstrong. And that means that a headstrong person is someone who's not easily restrained, impatient of control, advice, or suggestion. And also don't be self-willed and obstinate. You know, like, I'm getting my own way and I want my own way. No, we want the Lord's way. And so I was reading this from Brother Hagin, and he was talking how this is a continual process, because if we're not willing to obey Jesus in one area, that unwillingness will carry over into other areas of our lives and will hinder us from running the race he has set before us. When we make hard choices to put down our flesh and obey his will for our lives, we'll be able to run the race that is set before us. We'll get to hear that, well done, good and faithful servant. Matthew 25:21. And on top of that, he says, God will lead you to a wide open place, a place of abundance in every area of your life. And in the end will be perfect, established, strengthened, and settled. And that's 1 Peter 5:10 out of the New King James Version. And Brother Kenneth Hagin Sr. says, and fully satisfied. So I just want to encourage you not to get discouraged because of the phase that you're on, not to get discouraged if you feel like everybody else is getting off, everybody else is running, and I'm still stuck here training, or I'm still stuck here and people are leaving me behind. Even if you feel like that, I just want to encourage you that there will be a time when the gun will go off and it'll be time to run. It'll be time to do that next phase. But for right now, enjoy the preparation. Do the hard work. Die to your flesh. Let the Father show you what he wants you to do. Lay aside the sin. Lay aside the weights. Lay aside anything and everything that's going to hinder you from running fast and from being ready to run. I mean, it would look ridiculous to have an Olympic runner wearing, a heavy winter coat, a backpack, being ready to go mountain climbing instead of running. I mean, that would be ridiculous. But yet that's sometimes what we do in life, is we carry all this baggage with us. And Jesus is saying, hey, put the load down, leave that behind. You don't need it. I'll tell you what you need. Only take what you need. And so I just want to encourage you that really there is a specific plan for your life, a specific race, and it may not look like everyone else is around you, and that's okay. But just know that your obedience to him will set you up for that well done, good and faithful servant. So thanks for joining me today. I hope you're encouraged to run that race with victory and strength and with a new vigor, knowing that God is not working against you. God is working for you. And if it's killing, stealing, and destroying, it's not God. That's the enemy. If it's life and life more abundantly, that's our marker, that's our standard, then we know that that's Jesus. And so we want to cooperate with what he's cooperating with, and we want to resist what he's resisting. So be encouraged that you are more than a conqueror and overcomer in Christ. And we'll talk to you later. Bye-bye for today.